Greetings, my intrepid gentlemen and ladies, viewers of Team DawnLight, and allow me to welcome you to my new commentary. So the last commentary I did was over the PewDiePie formula, which I thought was sort of not really a topical issue, but a issue I really wanted to address. There come certain times where I have certain issues that I think should be kind of common knowledge or in the public conscious at the time, and I like to make videos about them real quick just to address my thoughts on them and maybe how you should approach them in certain lights. So for this commentary, I thought I'd go ahead and address Hearthstone. Now, I don't really address this very often, and in my Hearthstone videos that I did do, and in the videos that I did with Hayden, those are the Laddering series and the Dude It's Hearthstone series, I didn't really ever address my thoughts on Hearthstone. So I'll go ahead and just run it down pretty quick. I had originally recorded a commentary on my thoughts about Hearthstone, but I thought I'd just kind of redo this in a much more casual freeform style, because originally I had it scripted, and it didn't come out very well. It kind of sounded like boring. It was actually very dull, so I think in this more freeform conversation style I could probably get my thoughts out a little bit more, maybe not concisely, but certainly in a much more entertaining fashion. Now, what am I talking about when I say that Blizzard doesn't care? Well, what I'm trying to say is that, in general, I don't think Blizzard sees Hearthstone as any more than a money-making machine. If you look at it, most of the decisions that Blizzard has made indicate that they don't care that much about Hearthstone out of its value of farming money off of their consumers. Let's take a look, for example, at what's happened with the Hearthstone development since the time of open beta. It has released and been patched, and that's it. That's literally it. All Hearthstone has had are minor balance changes here and there, and it was released. And now we're getting Naxxramas. The problem I have with this is that Hearthstone has virtually no new content after being up for about 12 months. The cards that were in the open beta are the cards that you currently see in the game. There have been no changes to the existence of cards, aside from a few legendaries, in the game since it's been in beta. Now, most would argue that's not really a problem, but when you consider that Hearthstone is a game that's developed a competitive scene, much like StarCraft, it has a meta that is intrinsically part of that competitive scene. And with most metas, especially in MOBAs or RTS or anything of that nature, or TCGs or CCGs, as the case may present itself, you need to constantly add more in order to change up that meta, because if you just leave the meta stagnant, the actual competitive scene stagnates and people get burnt out on it. No one cares about it. Like, let's use a modern example of Titanfall, and this is kind of comparable for one reason. Titanfall was expected to probably have some kind of big competitive scene grow out of it, and it did. Kind of. It had streamers that existed for about 10 days after release, and then, or maybe a month after release, and then pretty much everyone disappeared because people realized that Titanfall wasn't going anywhere. No one was really updating the game extensively, and there wasn't enough content there to keep people playing. And I feel like Hearthstone is starting to reach that period, because Hearthstone has done literally nothing since the time of release, aside from Naxxramas, which is just coming out. And so as a result, there are only so many different decks you can make. There are only so many different strategies you can play, and there are only so many different cards that you can actually acquire in the game, that eventually you just get bored of it. For people who collect cards for their value or their rarity or anything like that, Hearthstone is a terrible medium to do that with, because it's so easy to get all the cards if you just pay out the ass for it, or you can spend all your dust to try to craft useless cards that are completely worthless to you, and what's more, you can't trade with your friends, so you just keep investing money or time into Hearthstone to try and get all the cards. And then you get disappointed because there's only, like, what, 200 cards in the game, something like that, and that's not counting duplicates. So, what's the incentive? There's nothing. The only incentive that Blizzard has really released are tournaments and the upcoming Naxxramas. Now, is it a problem that we've had the game for about nearly 6 months and there hasn't been really any content updates to it? That kind of depends on perspective. Personally, I think that it's either sheer laziness, greediness, or a complete lack of care on Blizzard's part. When I say greediness, I mean Blizzard is just using Hearthstone to milk some money out of their consumers, because they have to devote all of their time to Warlords of Draenor and maybe Project Titan and maybe Heroes of the Storm, but nothing's coming out about that, so it's uncertain. and I kind of wanted to link Hearthstone with Heroes of the Storm real quick. The other thing that kind of got me thinking about this, that Hearthstone is just this cash farm for Blizzard and they don't care about it at all aside from that, is that they're basically doing something with the same thing with Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm is the soon forthcoming MOBA, forthcoming in extreme quotes, by Blizzard, that was basically released, the press alpha was released I think back in February or so, and around that time, there were tons of streams coming out about it. There's all this footage. It released shortly after BlizzCon, so there's all this footage, there's all these streams, there's all this content coming out of it. And then after about a couple of weeks with Husky, StarCraft streaming it, and a couple other people streaming it, it just kind of died. No one cared about it anymore. And the reason why is because the alpha wasn't really getting updated that much, and there was nothing for anyone to do. And it wouldn't get pushed into beta, so there was nothing for anyone left to test, and everyone had seen all of the champions and the skins, and aside from minor balance changes, there wasn't really anything coming out about the game, so people stopped caring, which is understandable because there's nothing there for them to do. And so that was about 4 or 5 months ago, and that game is still technically an alpha, and we aren't moving anywhere near beta, and the last news announcement was like, I think 2 weeks ago, and that's after about 2 months of having no news. At least Hearthstone gives us news about the lack of features coming with it. So, that's a problem. Another point I'd like to bring up here real quick as kind of an example as to why Blizzard doesn't really care about Hearthstone is the existence of the card-coin combo, well, that was a mouthful, for the person who starts second at the beginning of every game. Now, you can argue statistics until you're blue in the face about how people who go second traditionally lose. You can show me as many stat charts as you want, or any logistics that you want to go through. But the point is that when you start with a clear card advantage over your opponent, you are starting with an advantage no matter what, whether you go second or not. Think about it in this context. Let's say I'm a mage, right? And you always have your 3 cards starting hand. And let's say I've already mulled, and I've gotten back a Mana Worm, a Violet Teacher, and Malygos. Just, you know, kind of a terrible draw, for example. But I'm going second. I get another card. I get a 4th card in addition to the card I'm going to draw for my first turn. And in that 4th card, I get Mirror Image. That instantly makes it so that I have one of the best opening plays turn 2 in the game, and I might not have even gotten that because I got that extra card out of the deck. Or, let's say for example that I get those 4 cards and I mull one back, because it was bad, and then I get another card instead that's, say, Arcane Missiles or something. Again, a 1 cost, I can play it out with Mana Worm, Coin, Arcane Missiles, and have a 3/3 on turn 1, and have dealt damage to the enemy. It is inherently unfair, no matter what way you cut it. The fact that you were given an additional card by itself, completely ignoring the coin, we can just throw the coin out there, because I think the coin's imbalanced anyway, because of the way that it just gives you so much tempo over the enemy player. I think the coin is imbalanced, but I think most people acknowledge that the coin's pretty imbalanced. The fact that that card is there is inherent imbalance. That is, it's not even sketchy, kind of like the coin is. The coin is kind of debatable as to whether it's imbalanced. That extra card is not. It's card advantage. Card advantage, inherently, as the name suggests, is an advantage. It's imbalanced. And as a proof that an imbalanced feature to the game still exists in the game after its open beta, alpha, and release stages, the fact that we're a year in and that hasn't changed is clear indication that either the devs don't care or they're not listening. Because that's a problem. Maybe it's just that enough people have preached against it being a problem that everyone's just thinking it's not a problem. No, this is a problem. That is an advantage you should not be allowed to have, no matter who you are. If we're gonna do that, let's just give everyone an extra innervate for turn 1 or turn 2. Because it's already imbalanced. This is probably an issue that Hearthstone has in itself. I think the reason Hearthstone doesn't have as many cards as it could, and this is kind of a side note, is the fact that Hearthstone doesn't allow for imbalance. Hearthstone is so formulaic and so clear-cut that it doesn't allow for imbalance. Which, okay, I can understand because you have this clear meta, you have a competitive scene that you want to use, but so do TCGs and they have imbalanced cards. You know how they get around it? They add options to tournament ban stuff. They add options to limit certain stuff below the threshold of, I think the normal for like at least Magic is 3 cards. They can limit it down to 1. Hearthstone doesn't have any feature for that. Hearthstone doesn't really have much of a proper tournament feature either. And considering they've built it around some kind of balance, probably suggesting that they wanted some kind of meta and competitive scene to develop around it, clearly means that there should be some sort of tournament feature that doesn't exist in Hearthstone. It's terrible. You can't set up... It's like League. You can't set up any sort of tournament brackets or challenger brackets. You kind of just have to have everyone peer-to-peer match up to determine combat, because there's no tournament system. There's no proper system for orchestrating Hearthstone tournaments. And I've used the word tournament way too many times in this long rambling sentence, but you get my point. So that's another reason I think Blizzard doesn't care. Blizzard hasn't made clear balance changes or added in features that are necessary to propagate some kind of competitive scene that they clearly have designed the game around and handicapped the enjoyment of the game around. And briefly, while we're on the subject of balance, I just want to touch on one more thing that Magic kind of does better and other TCGs do better than Hearthstone here. Hearthstone goes back on the cards that it's created and nerfs them. Magic doesn't do that. Magic actually releases cards and learns from its mistakes. Kind of a problem when you don't release any cards, isn't it, Hearthstone? Now, what's kind of the final bit of evidence here, the straw that broke the camel's back that really made me think about this topic? Well, if I really evaluate it, it's the fact that the Curse of Naxxramas is releasing and the way that the wings are structured. If you don't know the way the wings are structured, Naxxramas has 4 wings with different sort of little adventure mode encounters that in order to move through, you have to pay 700 gold, which is about at least a week's worth of quests, if not more, because it takes 2 to 3 quests to get 100 gold, at least. It will always take that many. Sometimes it only takes 2, but usually it will take 2 to 3 because the quests are variable, which is also a problem with gold farming. So, with each of the wings releasing at 700, that's a total of 2,800 gold that you need in order to get into all of the wings of Naxxramas. And if I just calculate that out really quick, yes indeed, that comes out to about 18.667 repeating different arena runs that you could have taken with that money instead, with that gold instead. Or you can pay $7 in order to get into each wing of Naxxramas, which brings the total to $28 to make it through one wing of Naxxramas. Now, of course, that's assuming that you don't want to rerun Naxxramas. Yeah, Blizzard doesn't care. And this can be seen in pretty much both in their pack costs and the way that they do quests. The pack costs are not that bad, although $10 for 7 packs is kind of dumb, and I don't know why it's in the game. But the fact that they have the quest structure the way it is, it's kind of nagging you to spend money on cards. There have been multiple occasions where I've been doing quests and I realized, I don't want to do this stupid jump through hoops crap just to get a pack. I'd rather just pay the money to get a pack. And that's kind of just their way of baiting you into buying packs because the game released free. Which, again, further evidence that it's just a cash farm for them. So, based on all this, should you stop playing Hearthstone? That wasn't really the crux of the argument, but I feel this point should probably be addressed because some people are likely going to bring it up. No. Don't quit Hearthstone if you don't want to. I'm going to quit Hearthstone because I think it's pretty much just Blizzard's new cash cow, and they're not going to care to support and develop it, and in 2, 3, 4 months' time, the game is just going to die off, and we're going to be back to nothing but StarCraft streams all the time, and people are going to stop streaming Hearthstone. Maybe. That's a prediction. I could be completely wrong, and they come out with 5 different content patches with tons and tons of cards in the game, but considering they're only releasing, what, 9 new cards? I think maybe, no, I think it was actually 12 the last time I looked. Maybe it might have been 15. Considering they're only releasing 15 new cards to a game that already has 200 some odd, or 100 some odd, and this is after 6 months, and it's a major content patch, and they're only now releasing 15 cards, one of which for every class, and then like 6 or 7 are neutral. That's ridiculous, and I don't think, based on that logic, that they're going to continue to support the game for much further, aside from, look at this big expansion, we got Firelands, where you go in and you fight Ragnaros and Bethtilok and whatever the big fire giant's name is, and it's 800 gold a wing, or $8 if you want to pay that. And we're going to introduce 9 new cards to the game, 1 for every race, or class rather, and We're not going to release any new neutrals, nothing like that. We're not going to release any new gimmick cards. You know those people that want to build Naga decks for fun because you want to do a stupid gimmick deck? You can't build Naga cards because we're not putting Naga cards in the game. You want to build a cool little ghoul deck? You got to wait until we put Death Knight in the game. Sorry. And then they're going to be Death Knight exclusives. Sucks for you. You want some kind of other sort of cool little gimmick deck that you can throw together that isn't Pirates or Mudkips? Nope. We're Blizzard. You get what you get. Quit whining. Quit whining. We gave you competitive scene. We gave you tournaments. Quit whining. I'm Chris Metzen. So, that's what I predict is probably going to happen. Maybe with a little bit less histrionics and exaggeration. Probably a little bit less Chris Metzen, because I don't even think Chris Metzen is involved in the production or development of Hearthstone. But, just something to keep in mind. Now, before you click off this video, or you try to write an angry comment, I want you to keep in mind that all of this is basically speculation, as Blizzard doesn't really reveal enough about this kind of thing to be able to get an accurate guess one way or the other. No CM manager at Blizzard is going to say, yeah, we don't care about Hearthstone, or they're going to make up some kind of BS excuse as to why there's no content, or they're going to say, oh, it's balancing concerns, it's so hard to balance all these cards. You know, kind of like how those other TCGs have thousands of cards, but a lot of them are imbalanced. However, you can work around that. Either way, maybe the balancing of Hearthstone is the problem. Maybe they're trying too hard, and it's limiting them too much. Maybe that's the issue, I don't know. It might be trying to balance it too much from some sort of competitive meta, and it might be doing them an injustice. So, again, all of this was speculation. I might be right, I might be wrong. Probably right, but there's a high chance I'm wrong. I just felt I would talk a little bit about it, as a lot of people seem to be getting into the Hearthstone bandwagon, and I have the feeling that that bandwagon is about to roll right off a cliff and join the many other bandwagons at the bottom of Bandwagon Canyon, or Abyss, depending. My name's been Omega. I'll see you next time. Thank you, humble viewer, for watching to the end of my video, and it would really be a great service to me if you would like this video and subscribe to Team DawnLight, this channel, if you want to see more high-quality content like this, and simply because it makes my day.